In this video, we're going to talk about taking a Modicon M340 PLC with Unity software and communicating to a Phoenix Axioline distributed I/O block. First thing we're going to do is configure the Modicon PLC. So we add a PLC into the Unity software with the Ethernet card, the NOC card that will do both Ethernet IP and Modbus Ethernet for scanning. If I double click on this card, we have to give it some areas of memory to put the information. So for the input information, I'm going to start it at memory word 100, and I'm going to leave 100 words space for it. And for the output, I'm going to put it at memory word 200 and give it 100 words of space. The next thing we have to do is under Tools, we have to open up the window for DTM Browser, which opens up this space here. And you'll see the NOC card show up in this window. I double click on that NOC card. That's where we actually come to the TCP IP tab, and we give it its IP address. So 192.168.0.121. So then we have to add a device to it. And this device is going to be a generic Modbus device that we gave it a name of Phoenix Axioline. And how we did that was we came here, right-clicked, and we added. And you'll see a whole bunch of DTMs that are actually loaded on your laptop. And I'm going to scroll down to basically generic Modbus device. Here's the Modbus device, and when I add this DTM, that's basically what this is right here. It adds a device. So to configure this device, I double click on the item above it. It opens this window, and I go down to the device. And there's a bunch of tabs here. I'm going to go from left to right. First thing you got to do is you got to give it a variable name for its input words and a variable name for its output words. And then under the address settings, you give it the IP address. Obviously, the first three octets have to match the first three of the NOC card if you're doing 255, 255, 2550 for your mask. And then the third thing is you got to give it some transactions of what it's actually reading and writing. So in this case, what I did was I pre-configured the Phoenix Axioline block for an address of 192.168.0.3. You simply put that in your Internet Explorer browser, and you come online with it, and it has an onboard web page. And I can take a look at a couple things. The Modbus I/O table here will come up, and it'll actually show what is configured next to the device itself. In this case, I have an 8-in, 8-out module and a safety module. We're just going to look at the 8-in, 8-out module for now, but it tells us that the input bits for this are going to be stored in word 8000 and the output are in 9000. And the safety information is going to be in these words. So when I come back to my Unity, I made two transactions, one for each card. I could make one for a whole bunch of cards, or I can make it one transaction. This is just to make it easy to see. And so I made this at 8000, one word, and the writes are 9000, one word. And for the safety, I just matched that up there, and that's perfect for that. Then the next thing I did was, once I'm through these three settings, I wanted to make the words kind of match. So I gave it some words, an input name here of Phoenix Axioline N. I want to come to the items for that. And right now it was for the first transaction that we had, there was one word. So in this case, I wanted to find the bits into something that makes sense. So I came in here and under the input bit, and I defined the item. Right now it's grayed out because it's named it, and I named it Axioline input 0, 1 through 7. So these bits will line up with the 8 inputs that are actually coming into that word. And I did the same thing on the output bits, where I actually defined the item with a name that made sense for me. So now when I go to my data editor, after I build the project, you're going to actually see that there's the word that we talked about for that drop, the Phoenix Axioline. Here's the variable. And underneath that, you're going to see here's the variable items that I defined under the items in the DTM browser. So now that I'm online and running with the PLC, I'm going to actually make an animation table of these three items. And I can see here's my inputs and here's my outputs. I'm going to put them in modification mode. And right now I have my outputs and I have the output wired over to the input. And if I force this to a 1, my input turns to a 1. And I can see the LEDs on both spots working. And if I just simply come down here and force them on, I'll actually see the LEDs turning on right inside the card itself. The other place I can look is under the NOC. I can actually see that the health bits for the transaction for the card, that the first 2 transactions in that first device are healthy, so I know that I'm communicating well to the device. The last place they can get you is if this isn't working, if you're not healthy. If I come back to the card in the Phoenix, one of the things that you'll see if you scroll down under startup behavior, by default, the plug and play mode is checked. That is when it powers up, it goes and looks at what your inputs and outputs are on the bus. And what you need to do is come into here and uncheck this and then type in the word private, all lowercase. And then apply and reboot. And then the card will be all set to go and it'll work like we have it in our application.